So the UFC is pretty much scrambling for a main event for UFC 317. International Fight Week is one of the biggest cards of the year for the UFC, and originally headlining it was supposed to be Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev, and unfortunately Dricus, it seems like he is suffering an injury. I know Kyle Borralho may have alluded to it being a shin injury, but apparently it's a pretty serious injury that will put him out until 2026. And Khamzat Chimaev pretty much took to Twitter confirming this, saying this guy's the biggest bullshit. And listen, Khamzat Chimaev has no room to talk about pulling out. This guy has more pullouts in the UFC than any active middleweight in the rankings right now. I mean, you got to pretty much keep this guy in a bubble. I mean, if he breathes the outside air, he's going to be pretty much bedridden from the common cold. But in all seriousness, who is going to headline UFC 317? There might be some news with Islam Makhachev potentially fighting Ilia Topuria. We'll get into that here in a little bit. But now that Dricus du Plessis is out, Khamzat Chimaev may be the one to headline UFC 317. And personally, I think Khamzat is a big name, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if his star power is enough to headline UFC 317, a whole international fight week, and especially against, the only options would be either Nasruddin Imavov or Kyle Borralho, and this fight is not as hype as a Dricus du Plessis fight would be. Let's just be real. Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev was the rightful main event for this card, and it's taking a huge hit now that Dricus is not on this card. And at the end of the day, the UFC is a business, so I can see Kyle Borralho getting the matchup against Khamzat Chimaev, because the fighting nerds have been on an absolute run right now. John Silva, Carlos Prates, and then to add on top of that, if Khamzat Chimaev does face Kyle Borralho, that would be absolutely huge. And apparently, Kyle Borralho and Khamzat Chimaev fight, Chimaev did agree to the deal. At least that's according to Borralho on Twitter. And this should be a pretty entertaining matchup, to say the least. And for the main event, it's pretty much confirmed that Ilia Topuria will be fighting for the belt at UFC 317. Even Ilia Topuria did tweet out the camp has begun. So I'm not sure if it's either for a vacant belt against maybe Charles Oliveira or against Islam Makhachev. And I've been campaigning for this fight for such a long time. Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria. I think this will be the fight to feed families, feed generations, and this is the biggest fight that the UFC can make right now besides the John Jones versus Tom Aspinall fight. I mean, who does not want to see Ilia Topuria go up against Islam Makhachev, especially with that whole kind of beef between Georgia and Dagestan now that Merab did defeat one of the Nurmagomedovs. There's already a little bit of bad blood coming into this fight. And I know Islam Makhachev had this quote saying, "Oh, what does the belt mean? It represents, what it represents." And then I can't, if you're putting me on the spot right now, I can't say it word for word, but pretty much alluding to that he'll fight anyone at any time. If you're the champion, you should be able to do that. And except if it's Ilia, because I know Khabib was saying that, why does Ilia deserve it? All these things, but this is the fight that people want to see. This is the fight that the fans are wanting to see. And unless you're some Islam Makhachev superfan and are afraid of him losing, there is no denying that this is the biggest fight that the UFC could possibly make for the International Fight Week, especially if they're wanting to sign a new deal with Netflix, or, because I know the ESPN contract is coming up. Now they're in negotiations with either Netflix or maybe Fox. So they're going to need to put on an absolute showing at UFC 317, proving that they're able to, that they're worth it, that they're worth Netflix or whoever to invest in their deal. And what other fight is better to make than Islam versus DDP? I just hope we're actually able to see this fight. I just don't want this to be one of those fights that just got away, and against John Jones versus Rumble, one of those type of fights where you've always wanted to see it, but it just never ended up happening. And this is going to be one of the last times we see Islam Makhachev in the lightweight division. I believe after his next defense might go up in the welterweight division, and deservingly, he's definitely deserving this shot. I mean, even now, he can move up to the welterweight division. I know he was probably waiting against the winner, who's going to win against JDM versus Bilal Muhammad. But either way, no matter the outcome of that fight, Islam should move up no matter what. Islam has deserved this. He's on his fourth title defense, the most title defenses in the lightweight division. He's already proved himself and cemented himself as the lightweight GOAT, surpassing Khabib Nurmagomedov. And if it's not this fight with Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev, it might be against Charles Oliveira, because I know Charles Oliveira did post on his Instagram saying that he's returning pretty much the same time, around the same time when Ilia Topuria posted that the camp has begun. So it's either an Islam Makhachev fight for the title, or it's Islam versus Ilia, or it's Ilia versus Charles Oliveira for either the vacant title or an interim championship. I know on one of the podcasts that Ilia Topuria went on recently, he said that the UFC promised him a title shot in the lightweight division if he were to vacate his featherweight belt, and that he will wait and he will sit out until he gets this opportunity. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what the UFC ends up doing, because I know before in the past they have promised other fighters title shots and they haven't gotten them. So that's going to be all I have for you guys in today's video. Let me know who you think is going to be headlining UFC 317.